I think this is the most interesting UX law. It's called the law of proximity. It means objects that are near or close to each other tend to be grouped together. But why is this important? Let me explain. The principles of grouping, or Gestalt laws of grouping, are a set of principles in psychology, first proposed by psychologists to account for the observation that humans perceive objects as organized patterns, a principle known as pragnance. These principles are organized into 5 categories: proximity, similarity, continuity, closure, and connectedness. So what do they do? Well, let's start with a simple example. When objects are placed near one another, the mind perceives them as a group. They are essentially Gestalt. If the term is new to you, the German word Gestalt literally means the way a thing has been placed or put together. Like many German words, there is no exact translation in English. To better understand the meaning, it's useful to understand the idea of Gestalt psychology, which teaches that brains tend to process organized groups of things as a whole, rather than a number of individual things. Many concepts come from this: a school as a group of fish, students, courses, or ideas; a machine as a group of interoperating mechanisms; a layout and section as a collection of visualized information on a website. So how do we apply proximity to websites? Here is a very simple way to illustrate the principle of proximity. On the left, there is one group of shapes. The brain sees this as a single group, though the shapes may, for example, be different sizes or images of different things. Because they have been put together, it is implied that they have something in common. On the right, there are 2 groups of shapes. Because space between the 2 groups is greater than the space between the individual shapes in each group, the brain will see these as 2 groups rather than 1. Imagine we have words instead of shapes to show the principle of proximity. On the left side, think of a list where all the words are spaced the same way and lined up neatly. This makes it look like everything in the list is equally important and part of one big group. Now on the right side, picture 2 separate lists. The space between these 2 lists is bigger than the space between the lines in each list. This helps our brains see them as 2 different groups of words, not just one. Also, if one of these lists has words that are a bit indented, it's a way to show that some of the words belong together and support another idea in the list. Our brain uses space and how things are arranged to understand and order information. Think of it like putting puzzles together. We can see this when we look at widgets, which are like small tools or features on a web page's sidebar. On the left side, imagine 2 widgets that are enclosed, like they are inside a box or a shape. This box shows us that they are 2 different things. The space between them tells us they are separate, but since they are close, we know they are both part of the sidebar. Now on the right side, picture 2 widgets that are not in a box. They are just there without any borders. Since they don't have these borders, we need more space around them. This space helps us see that they are different from each other, but still similar in what they do. When making websites, designers often use full bleed rows. This means the rows stretch all the way across the screen. They do this especially for mobile phones, making things fit on small screens first. Then they use the same design for bigger screens. I don't really like this way of doing things unless it's really focused on mobile first. Then they should change the design to suit bigger screens too. Why? Because full bleed rows, which go from one edge of the screen to the other, can make it hard for us to quickly see and understand what's on the page. It's like when we read a book. We look at how words are arranged to understand them. If everything is squished together, our brain might think it's all the same, but it's not. So on the left side, imagine a web page where everything is in full bleed rows one after the other. The more rows there are, the harder it is for our brains to tell them apart while reading. But on the right side, think of a web page where information is grouped in different ways. There's space between these groups. This helps our brains see and understand the structure of the page faster. So what are the takeaways from the law of proximity? Firstly, proximity helps to establish a relationship with nearby objects. It also allows elements that are in close proximity to be perceived, to share similar functionality or traits. Finally, proximity helps users understand and organize information faster and more efficiently.